Now joining us is another avid fly caster who participates in a nonprofit program for women living with breast cancer. It's called Casting for Recovery. Meg Konkel is here. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Meg, I want to talk about this program in just a minute, but fly casting, it's so fascinating to me, and I know that you've been doing this for years. How did you get into it?
I got into it through my family. I am surrounded by fly fisher people, including two older brothers who learned at a very young age out in Montana. And I was brought into it by my oldest brother, who declared that I had to step up and live up to the family name and learn how to fly fish, and so we did. And that was when I was about 14.
We shot this in Upperville, and you live in Northern Virginia in Alexandria.
I do, yes.
Are there good places in Virginia?
There are fantastic places in Virginia. Some of the brook trout fishing in Virginia is phenomenal. And you have to be mindful of how you're defining good fly fishing. Some people define good fly fishing by really big fish. I think that actually catching little brookies on small streams in the Shenandoah Park is one of the best ways to spend a day. So there's some great opportunities for fishing in the state.
With this story, we showed a lot of footage on the pond, just a little bit inside with the flies, and that's really the core of fly fishing. You have to be an entomologist.
You do. You have to like bugs in a big way. Fly fishing is essentially mimicking the patterns and types of bugs that fish eat. And so when you choose what fly you're going to put on the end of your line, what you're really doing is trying to take a stab at what you think might be tempting to the fish in their natural habitat, in their feeding zones that they happen to be in particular rivers.
You broke it down for me earlier. There's casting and there's fishing.
Yes. Casting is the actual act of working the fly rod to get the fly in motion so that you can project it long distances out onto water. But fishing is actually the act of getting that fly to work for you in terms of how you read the stream and how you understand and interpret where the fish are and where and how they're likely to be tempted by what you're offering them.
Speaking of being tempted, I'm tempted to try this, but I've got to say it looks so hard.
It's really not. It's really not. One of the things about Casting for Recovery that's so great is that these women learn how to fly fish and catch fish in less than 36 hours with really very little effort or very little instruction. It's actually a really accessible sport. It just looks fancy, and so it's intimidating.
There was the analogy of golf, and that may be a fair one because there are hackers. And
and there are flailers out on the stream. Yeah, it is, and it is similar in the sense that if you overthink, you know, you really start to flail badly. But it's a pretty simple movement. It's a pretty simple motion, fly fishing and fly casting. And once you kind of get the hang of it, you can go anywhere and catch some fish and have a nice time.
There is now the program.
Yes.
Casting for Recovery. Tell us about the connection.
The connection for me?
For you.
Well, as I said, I've been fishing since I was a teenager, and I am also a cancer survivor. And there came a point in time around 2001, 2002, where I was looking for ways to get involved and looking for ways specifically to give back in some way related to the experience that I had. And I actually was looking through an Orvis catalog. Orvis is one of Casting for Recovery's primary sponsors. All of the gear that we use for the women to go fishing is provided by Orvis. And so I was looking at fishing gear, which is one of the great pastimes of fly fisher people, and saw an advertisement about Casting for Recovery. And the combination struck me as pretty powerful. Fly fishing is a sport of optimism, you know. You can't be a pessimist and think that with the next cast you might catch a fish. And that's actually pretty meaningful for someone that's coming out of an experience like the women that we target are coming out of.
There's physical motion that helps with recovery.
The movement of casting is fairly therapeutic for people who have had surgeries like the surgeries that are related to breast cancer treatment. It helps improve range of motion. And it serves as sort of a gentle strengthener for people that are recovering from that kind of treatment.
And there are studies supporting that women bonding, talking about, engaging in activities together is therapeutic.
Absolutely.
And possibly even life-enhancing.
Healing, absolutely. One of the interesting things about the women that come to our program is that they are typically not support group women. These are women who are trying something totally new because they're game and they're adventuresome and they're ready to sort of redefine their lives following this kind of a treatment, but they're not people that have usually spent a lot of time in support groups. The interesting thing that happens is how successfully they bond and connect with each other while they are engaged in this activity of fly fishing. So in some ways, the fishing is purely a vehicle for them to take on a new activity and do so in the company with the support of women that have gone through very similar experiences to them. That's actually really hugely powerful to these women, and it's something that kind of sneaks up on them. They're there for the fly fishing, but they leave having, you know, made these unbelievable relationships in a very short period of time.
I know, Meg, you've led clinics for these women. Walk us through what they might learn.
Well, they learn the basics of fly fishing, and so we sort of break it down into 4 categories. They learn the casting itself, so how to actually throw the line. They learn about the equipment and safety issues related to being on the water and etiquette, stream etiquette, things like that.
You mean don't elbow your neighbor?
Don't fish in other people's water. And also, you know, just sort of ecology management, the preservation and conservation of the habitat that we depend on for these fish to actually be there for us to catch and release. By the way, we release them back. But we teach them about bugs so that they have a sense of the basic sort of categories of food that the fish like to eat. And then we teach them about knots, tying knots, which isn't very glamorous, but it's a huge thing of independence for them. I remember when I was learning how to fish, I was very dependent on my brothers and my father to, you know, tie a fly on or get me set up with my rod and reel. And after a while, that can kind of get annoying, right? And so the idea of teaching them enough so that they could wake up any given morning and go fishing is part of the motivation of what we're doing.
And what's the website where people can go?
The website is www.castingforrecovery.org.
Meg Konkel, thanks so much for taking time off the water to be with us.
Thanks so much for having me. I enjoyed it.
That's right.